The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
TV party tonight! What? TV party tonight! Oh!
We got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews.
Don't want to talk about anything else.
We don't want to know.
We're dedicated to our favorite shows!
Oh, my circuits!
Everybody loves Hypnotoad.
Scary dog!
Pearson at Blurnsville.
Futurama!
Good evening. You are listening to a Radulich Broadcasting Premier Podcast TV Party Tonight. I'm your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified and a little hoarse, Mr. Mark Radulich. And tonight, our favorite show is The Offer, brought to you by the good people at DXD Films, the White Mountain Company, which I assume does more than sell cocaine, Black Mass Productions, and Paramount Television Studios. The Offer is an American biographical drama, television miniseries, in other words, created by Michael Tolkin, no, not that Tolkien, the other Tolkien, and developed by Tolkin and Nikki Toscano for Paramount Plus. The series follows the development and production of Francis Ford Coppola's landmark gangster film, The Godfather, from 1972, when all the good movies were made, from Paramount Pictures. It stars Plank of Wood, Miles Teller, Matthew Goode, Giovanni Ribisi, doing an insult to Italians far and wide for decades to come, Tom Hanks' son, Dan Fogler, Juno Temple from Ted Lasso, and Burn Gorman. It premiered on April 28th, 2022, and ran for 10 episodes through June 16th. And I am joined by the vivacious, the lovely, the talented other host of TV Party for the garbage I don't want to be bothered with. Ladies and gentlemen, Alexis Hejna from Honeysuckle Rose Creations. How do you do?
Okay, you got to call Miles Teller a plank of wood. I'm assuming that's just in case Robert was still listening. He's probably turned off his computer by now. Yeah, Miles Teller is freaking phenomenal in the show.
He's fantastic, but yes, I had to get one block of wood in as contractually obligated for Robert Winfrey. It's in his contract that I have to do that.
Fair enough. But yes, doing well, back from Colorado Springs, finally got some rest. So,
all right.
Seriously, though, please send me the JPEG image for the opening art here. I'm actually taking it kind of easy this week. Please let me craft you a better picture where all of the men have the right number of legs.
And they're not sitting on the couch with the television like it's the family dog? Sure. I will work on that.
Come on, I'm your best artist for a reason. Let me have a crack at it.
You're my only. Well, no, Benjamin's the other artist, but yes, you're my most loyal and dedicated artist.
Is Ben officially a member of our crew, though? I thought he was just a returning guest. An awesome returning guest. He's great.
Ben used to do the title card for Long Road to Ruin. He will always be one of the OGs.
Okay.
He's a made man. Don't fuck with Ben.
I don't fuck with Ben. I met Ben. Ben's awesome.
He certainly is, Ollie. All right, and from Wonder Pictures, if it's good, it's a wonder. Ladies and gentlemen, Dorian Price, how do you do, sir?
Just great.
Have you even seen the cartoon short that joke is from?
Yeah, he sent it, or he told me what it was, and I finally watched it. So because like first couple times, I was like, "Mark's riffing, just roll with it."
No, he's just a fan of Daffy Duck.
Dorian, you do know I still call people from the Screaming Boy podcast. Once I have a joke, dog with a bone.
Yeah, it's like that joke's there. All right.
And because I could see one of your veins pop out when I did it, I will never stop doing it. You're welcome.
Right. It's like...
All right. So we are here talking The Offer. This is the second time I've watched this. The first time was about a year or so ago. I was dating somebody, and we were kind of, on the nights that we would have date night at the house, we were looking for a show to watch, and we have wildly different tastes in television. So I pitched this to her because it's something that when Paramount, during the early days of the streaming wars, Paramount announced on Paramount Day 87 billion television shows that were coming to Paramount Plus over the next few years. One of them was this, and I was interested in it because I am a fan of Hollywood history. I enjoy like the behind the scenes history of how some of our favorite movies got made. And this was about how The Godfather got made. So to do a quick back and forth about this before we go any further, Alexis, I asked you to be a part of this. You a fan of Hollywood history? Were you a fan of The Godfather? Were you just trying to do me a favor so I'll owe you back? Like, what was your deal here? What made you want to do this with me tonight?
Oh, you'll actually pay me back for this? Okay, I'm going to make a note of that.
All right. Dorian, what are you a fan of The Godfather?
Okay, well, first of all,
Dodge and weave.
I don't know anyone who isn't a fan of The Godfather. I mean, it is considered one of the greatest movies of all time. Now, I know people who will say that they don't want to sit through The Godfather on a regular basis.
It insists upon itself.
Yes, I get that. But you cannot deny what an epic movie it truly is.
Robert De Niro.
I was really hoping actually we could avoid the Family Guy reference, but apparently that was happening too much.
Hi, this is the Radulich Network. Have we not met?
Really?
Dude, I got you this job. Put your hand down.
Put it up.
Okay.
Here, come on, give me a... There we go.
Okay.
Wait.
Yeah,
There it is.
For God's sake. Okay, now do the thing where you do the hearts.
We'll fix it in post.
We've been waiting for 20 minutes for you to get up and finish your point. Let's go.
Okay, no, it is an incredible film. It's amazing. When I saw the trailer for this, I was intrigued. I didn't have Paramount Plus. I actually still don't. I decided because the last time I borrowed your Paramount Plus access, I kept getting booted off because somebody at your house was trying to use it.
Probably me. So
Yeah, so every time I tried to watch Knuckles, I got like 5 minutes of footage and it said, nope, must reset. So I watched Knuckles literally at like inches at a time.
That's great.
So I decided this time to just go ahead and buy the offer on Amazon. I found it was like, this is actually cheaper than paying for another subscription service.
So you're here because of your interest in the Godfather film.
Pretty much. I also really like the cast for this. I was like, this all seems like really good casting. Again, I do really like Miles Teller. I know he's made some stupid movies, but I don't understand a certain someone's hatred of the man. I am very intrigued with Dan Fogler and how far he's come. I mean, this guy was known for playing the corny side characters in B-movie comedies. And to see him come this far and playing Francis Ford Coppola and playing him so straight, I was just like, okay, I want to see more of what he's doing. You know, this is not something that 10 years ago I would have predicted him doing.
Exactly.
And like you, I do love behind the scenes movies. I'm a big fan. This sounds weird, but I'm a big fan of seeing movies where you have actors playing other actors. This is why I'm really intrigued by that Saturday Night Live movie that's coming out later this year. I like the idea of seeing these unknown actors who are now playing, iconic actors and seeing what they bring like that to the table. One of my favorite movies is Ed Wood, and I freaking love seeing Martin Landau playing Bela Lugosi. That's the kind of thing I just find very fascinating. It's one thing to play a fictional character or even a historical character who's long dead, but to play an actor like that, when you're an actor, I think that presents a really unique challenge, and I like seeing what people can bring to that kind of a thing.
So, Dorian, you asked to be here. Once again, you muscled your way into another one of my podcasts. Obviously, you're a film guy. You make films and all of that. Godfather have a special place in your heart or what?
Absolutely. Godfather was the first R-rated film I was allowed to watch at a younger age.
Churchy McGee and Mrs. Churchy McGee let you watch The Godfather of all things?
Yeah, actually, it was on TV, and the only reason we got away with it, now again, the first R-rated film that they knew I watched, just to be clear.
Okay.
But Mr. Churchy McGee was a huge fan of history.
Okay.
And so this had a very historical base to it. And I had been doing... we'd been handling at the time that we watched this when I was much, much younger. although not too long ago. But we were handling 1930s and 40s history, and you know, it was on TV. I think it was a cut version, but I ended up really loving it. It gave way to one of the first impressions that I would ever do, and then I would continue to do it for the rest of my life. You know, Buonasera, what have I ever done to make it treat me so disrespectfully? And so I've been doing that for years, but I'm not going to do the whole review in that voice because that's going to get really annoying. You know what I mean?
No, but at the end of this, I would like you to order from an Italian menu in that voice.
I will happily do that.
And then when I remove his picture from the screen, I will say it's not personal. It's just business.
Okay.
Well, you got to remember, I have access to now, so I can put myself right back on.
Ah, shit.
Anyways, not to take up too much time, I ended up just kind of about 6 years later, just really diving into these movies, the entire trilogy. I mean, the third one's weak, but we all know why, and Coppola has said why. And this showed me the reason that I was so excited about it is that I was that weird kid that when Mr. and Mrs. Church and McGee would bring home DVDs that were like the 2-disc special edition that had all the behind-the-scenes stuff on it. Of course, I wanted to watch the movie, but I wanted to watch all the behind-the-scenes stuff. And I used to annoy the crap out of my friend for that because the people on this podcast, notwithstanding, but at the same time, maybe they would, are not the people that you want to bring. Like, dude, we're going to watch, you know, Empire of Dreams, which is like the whole behind-the-scenes story of how Star Wars was made. But it is a documentary. To a lot of people, that's boring. What I love about The Offer and why I wanted to be on this and talk about this is a movie that as a filmmaker, as a film lover, and all the elements that go on in front of the camera, behind the camera, you know, before the cameras even roll, gets to be told in a way that is not boring to people. And they can watch it as someone who's like, I have no idea what you do for a living, Dorian, but I know it looks cool. I can be like, this kind of shows you on, you know, there's a much grander scale, obviously, what happens. And it was done so well. And it was so entertaining to the people who I encouraged to watch it. And they're like, this is what you do for a living. I'm like, again, on a much grander scale. Yes, this is what we go through. And, you know, like, again, Alexis said, the cast was fantastic. You know, the people playing, you know, Al Pacino and James Caan. I was like, man, you guys, I mean, it's not mirror image, but it's close enough that I could buy if I never watched the movie that this was a behind the scenes thing. And just to cap off, I think it's funny since Alexis brought up Martin Landau as in Ed Wood as Bela Lugosi. You know you've done good when you are playing a actor who is at that point long dead, and you win the Oscar over Sam Jackson going, "Say what? Say what again?" Because in that year's Academy Awards, Martin Landau beat out Samuel L. Jackson for Pulp Fiction for Best Supporting Actor.
First time an actor has ever won an Oscar for playing another actor.
Exactly.
Hey, something just went up with my camera. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you. You're just frozen in this kind of bemused look.
Perfect. I actually don't know what I don't know what I look like. My camera went black for some odd reason, but
trust me, Mark, there are far worse ways that you could look right now.
I was editing earlier, and there's a great shot of me kind of rolling my eyes, and I clipped it right there. I look like the fucking Undertaker.
I get that sometimes when you're asking me for clips for TikTok, and I pause it so I can write down the time code, and then I look back. I'm like, oh, geez, maybe I should put that back another millisecond so I don't look like or anything.
Since he's frozen, everybody strike a pose, and that'll be the thumbnail. You know, like.
Yeah, I will probably have to. Refresh in a second, but I want to get this out real quick. So two things. One, I started, I would say 1994, I graduated high school and I go into college, and it's probably 94, 95, 96 is where me and my friends at that time were really into like buying DVD. There was a convergence of things happening all at the same time. Tower records were everywhere. DVDs were cheap enough to buy, with your disposable income. So we were constantly going to Tower Records, like buying a whole bunch of old movies and stuff. And we were having movie nights. And, I was watching things like Dog Day Afternoon, Deliverance, The Deer Hunter, which is still going. It's that long of a movie, things like that. And there was a conversation that took place amongst my friends. They were like, oh, we should watch The Godfather. And I was like, I've never seen it. They're like, you've seen everything. What do you mean you've never seen The Godfather? So like I said, I'm in my, late teens, early 20s. In the mid to late 90s, had never seen The Godfather, and I've seen every other movie from the fucking 70s at this point. So I was made to watch the first two. But what I find amusing is that as many movies as we reviewed, old and new, on Radulich and Broadcasting Network, the only Godfather movie we ever did was Godfather Part 3. It was Sean's suggestion as an on trial.
Well, if
So
any
there are
movie
no-
deserves to go on trial, it's that one.
Yeah, there are no. There
Poor Sofia Coppola alone. She wasn't supposed to play the role. It was supposed to be Winona Ryder. There were scheduling conflicts. They were right at the wire. They had to do the best they could with what they had.
So that's my history with The Godfather. As far as
That's what you, Sophia.
as far as this show goes, the other thing I wanted to bring up, and you guys can touch on this if you have something you want to add, and then we'll get into the show itself. I have a my bachelor's degree is in literature. I know I'm a professional social worker, and that's what my master's is in. But going through college, I was a literature major, and I took a lot of like acting and screenwriting and directing classes, and nothing outside of college. Though I did do a little bit of extra acting when I lived in Los Angeles for a little bit. And I always thought, as much as I like writing, as much as I like acting, I think what my dream job was to be a producer. That's how this relates. I'm doing motions with my hand, realizing I'm still frozen.
I was gonna say, I'm just wait.
Can we change the color of his picture to black and white? Because it looks like that picture you pull up
Hang
when
on.
it's like in memoriam, and it's like Mark Radulich, 19 whatever to 2024, and he's like had that very warm smile.
See, I'm just waiting for him saying that him saying he wants to be a producer. I'm waiting to hear the music with Matthew Broderick suddenly going, I want to be a producer. Lunch at Sardi's every day. Yeah.
All right, are we better now? Thanks.
You're better. Sorry, I get it. You couldn't see it, but it was just like you like.
He just looks so cute and content.
That's what I was like. Can we just like black and white? It's like in memoriam.
I was honestly an inch away from like snapping a picture of it and texting it to you on Facebook so you could at least see
I really
it.
wanted to just keep the show going. Anyway, I love the idea of producing. The idea of like.
So you're
talking
that
to people.
motherfucker.
Yeah, talking to people, making deals, keeping everybody on budget. It's a little rinky-dink podcast that I do here, but I work with 87 of you fucking cats that I have to round up and throw in a bag and possibly in a river at times. So,
those of you who drag yourself out, you may remain.
But my point is, I have a talent for it. At least I think I do. And I think, had life taken a slightly different turn, I probably would have made a halfway decent producer. So I was really interested in Al Ruddy's story. And Al Ruddy is the star of this picture. It follows him. He's a producer for Paramount, and he is the producer of The Godfather. This show is about his experience producing that movie. Working with Mario Puzo, who wrote the novel, bringing in Francis Ford Coppola, who directed, and being that go-between between the craft and development people, the writer, the producer, the actors, and the executive people, the executive director of Paramount, and the people who ran Gulf and Western, who own the Paramount company. He has a lot of masters he has to serve. He has a lot of people he has to deal with, and not anywhere near to the extent that he does. But I've been that guy. I'm running in between. They talk about this with social work, systems theory. Where you have to work within different systems in order to get things accomplished. That's appealing to me, at the very least. It's something on a different level with a different goal in mind. It's kind of what I've done in my profession as a social worker. So I was very much. So that's the other thing that drew me to the show, is I was very much interested in how he produced this and what entailed being a producer. Were there any other, as far as that side of it, Alexis, anything else that drew you to the show? You can say no, or you can say, yes, I have something.
Well, you're completely forgetting about him also having to deal with the Italian American Civil Rights.
That too.
League.
Yeah. You want to take a minute and speak on the subplot of this thing that very much deals with the mob?
You really think I'm the best person to do that?
You brought it up. I thought you had something. It's fine.
It's like, I'm half German, quarter Czech, quarter Scottish. Okay, I do not have a drop of Italian blood in my body.
I'll ask you a different question. Do you like mob movies?
Honestly, I haven't seen that many.
Okay.
So
Dorian, any thoughts on any of what I just said? Anything you want to add to it, or are we ready to roll? With
Absolutely,
this
yeah. I will actually take the ball from Alexis on this one because I was raised in a very strong Italian American area of Northeast Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
Many of the families that we knew very well that they were either active or retired, shall we say, good family men.
Yeah, sure.
And again, the best people to grow up with. I learned all my politeness. I learned I learned all my manners from them. I learned how to cook from them.
Be polite or I'm gonna smack you.
Right. You're breaking your mama's heart. But no, to that very point of, again, the joke that I just made, the issues that Ruddy had to deal with is with the civil rights movement and stuff like that. So many gangster movies before then had put the Italians as a joke, or, they're always the bad guys.
Let me interject for a second. My grandmother, God rest her soul, my midget Italian, literally from Sicily grandmother, this diminutive 3-foot-tall gardener, telling me there is no such thing as the mafia. It's an invention by Hollywood to shame Italians. My Italian grandmother, Dorian, nobody had it worse than the Italians. Not the Jews, not the blacks, no, not women at large. Nobody had it worse in this world than the Italians. And Hollywood made up the mafia to put the Italian man down. This is what I grew up with.
I don't doubt it. And again,
I don't know why I made my grandmother sound like my grandfather, but that's what happened.
I was gonna say, all of a sudden, your grandmother sounds like she has a very interesting.
Your mother's been smoking 20. Grandmother's been smoking 20 packs of Pall Mall.
Back in Sicily, we were gardening. What the hell are you gardening?
Clean your room.
Well,
your parents are going to be here in 15 minutes.
I do find it interesting, this idea that the show has, that they had in real life, about movies like this, they being seen as insulting to Italians, because nowadays you announce in Hollywood that you're going to be making a gangster movie and you have about 1,000 Italian Americans all shout, okay, great, work. And they promptly
get a job.
Yeah, they probably grease back their hair, puff out their eyebrows, and start working on their Brooklyn accents.
We both ran over Dorian, but I'm going to run over him one more time. My favorite quote by my Nana was, "We're either a mob or we're Joey from Friends." What the fuck? We're either in the mob or we're stupid. Fangula. All right, keep going, Dorian. Sorry.
No, but this was a very interesting role of it, because to this point, there were films where the gangster was kind of the good guy, but it always usually turned out that he was was charged incorrectly. There was some thing where, like, the higher ups are doing stuff. But this was also the first. But with all that in mind, this is the first movie where we follow the family, the mob, as our protagonists. We're kind of rooting for them.
Yeah.
But again, there is that tragedy of it that we'll get to more as we talk about the story at large, because I know the story that is actually in the movie that we've all seen, or hopefully you've seen, because if you haven't seen it, why are you listening to this podcast? There's an Acolyte one that's 1,000 times more hilarious. Go listen to that.
Would you like to hear Star Wars compared to the Catholic Church?
Would you like to hear me just finally break and say, why am I here?
You didn't even say it. You just held up a piece of paper.
Yeah, I know.
All right. The whole point being is that, like, we follow these people and we're rooting for them,
Mm-hmm.
And the other big thing for me, again, as a filmmaker, was Francis Ford Coppola was not an untested director at the time of making this film, but he had never made something like this.
Yeah.
This was a risk. This was a swing. And I'll tell one very quick story, because it doesn't really attach to the TV show at large, so I want to get it out now. When George Lucas was showing his early cut of Star Wars that didn't have all the special effects on and stuff like that, he had obviously Steven Spielberg, his BFF there, Brian De Palma, Francis Ford Coppola, and I believe one other person who always escapes my mind.
Well, you did catch that George Lucas made a cameo appearance in this, right?
But again, I wasn't going to tell that story then, because that was going to derail our conversation about what was happening then. So I figured I'd just tell it now and get it out of the way. But ironically enough, Francis Ford Coppola, who had already achieved The Godfather, kind of smacked Lucas down and went, "Burn all of this, cut your losses. It's never going to work. No one's going to like this." The man's already holding an Oscar at this point. And it was, ironically enough, Steven Spielberg who was like, "No, Francis, you're wrong. This movie's going to change the world more than The Godfather did. And again, Spielberg was right.
Kind of wish you'd listened to him. All right.
Because
we are not getting onto that.
We're back.
We are not getting into that conversation.
So,
especially since there's no Chris Bailey here.
So I'm going to try to do this in 50 to 100 words or less, and then I want to talk about some broad points. Al Ruddy is a programmer who works for the Rand Corporation, but he has big dreams. He's got a story in his heart, and he wants to share it with the world. And so through some schmoozing, some networking, some partying, some being a man in the 70s, he finds himself at a pitch meeting at Paramount Studios, and Hogan Heroes is born. So he does Hogan's Heroes for the length and breadth of that show, and he's known as a TV guy. But he has aspirations, don't you see? He wants to be in pictures, big pictures, name in the lights. And so he kind of muscles, schmoozes, sneaks his way into the offices of the higher executive at Robert Evans' office at Paramount, who is a legend in the making of movies of that era. He's played by Matthew Goode in this series. And he gets an opportunity to produce movies, even though he's untested. Because at the time, like, if you're in TV, you're in TV. If you're in movies, and movies, and never the twain shall meet. But Evans takes a liking to Al Ruddy and gives him a chance. And the chance he gives him is with The Godfather, which seems unproducible at the time. We meet Mario Puzo, who is a struggling writer. And God, I understand how he felt. Like, I have a story I need to tell. I have a thing I need to say. I have a voice, and I want to use that voice to speak my truth. Yeah, nobody gives a fuck. No one gives a fuck. And he has borrowed from everybody, including the mob. And so his wife says, you're going to have to write something people will actually want to read, Mario, not what you like. We've all been there. And so Mario's like, I grew up with the mob. I mean, write about that. And she was like, people like that sort of thing. Yes, we do.
I think that was his agent, actually. She said that people...
It was both. It was the wife and the agent that were both like, get on the stick here.
Well, yeah, because the agent said something about how people perked up at the last reading when he mentioned something about dealing with criminals. And she was like, that was what got people interested. So
yeah, and that sparks the conversation with the wife, who basically agrees with the agent. So anyway, so he writes The Godfather and it becomes a national bestseller. And at the time, I think Paramount was optioning every book ever written. So they're
not doing that now.
Yeah, so they optioned it early, and that's what leads to it getting made. So Al Ruddy goes to Mario Puzo and says, even though we don't normally have the author of the book write the screenplay, we're going to have you do it because you have this keen insight. Except that he's never written a screenplay before. Obstacle one. The second thing is he's got to get a director, and Francis Ford Coppola is not exactly in the world's best place in terms of making movies at this time, and so he's a risk. Obstacle two, but he brings him in, and he's going to help get Mario under control because Mario's having a hard time with the script. Fast forward, they eventually get the script written. They eventually start going into production. Some of the problems that arise along the way is, yes, they anger the mob, who does not want this thing done because they don't want Italians to look bad. And so a lot of the show deals with Al Ruddy trying to convince the mob that this is not going to make Italians look bad. Which in doing so brings the mob into development and production of this movie, which has its own tails and turns. There's a fight, and this is one of the big subplots of the story, to get Al Pacino to be in the movie. Robert Evans doesn't want him. Everyone thinks he's too short. He's not a star, yada, yada, yada. And the way that the show deals with it, you can kind of see where those characters are coming from. Paramount is on the verge of being sold because it's not making money. Over the course of the series, Love Story comes out, and it's a big hit. And Bob Evans keeps saying, hey, it's a 1-2 punch. We got Love Story, and then we got The Godfather, which puts a lot of pressure on Al of make a hit or end up in the river. So yes, there's a lot.
And make it respectful to Italians or end up in the river.
Right. There's a lot of masters being served or death. And so Al Ruddy is involved with, I think it's a hotel owner. And they end up on the outs because he's putting so much into this movie and doesn't trust anyone. So moving forward, they eventually shoot this thing. There's a lot of obstacles in getting it shot, but they eventually do it. There's some issues with the budget. One of the subplots that comes up again is Paramount is almost nearly sold during all of this, and so they almost lose the whole thing. Al Ruddy at least one time gets fired from the production, which causes it to shut down. But they eventually shoot the movie, edit the movie. It's approximately 12 hours long. And of course, Robert
Don't
Evans
worry, Martin Scorsese would look at that and say, "Huh, child's play."
It's a short film.
Hold my beer.
Yeah,
Martin
hold my
Scorsese,
martini.
Martin Scorsese looked at the director's cut of The Godfather and went, "Oh, you've made a short student film. Good." So then that's another obstacle of like, no, you have to get this thing down to feature length, you psychos. And they're like, no, it has to be 12 hours long. Don't you understand? So that's a fight. There's a fight over artwork, which is really funny to me. I love that scene. Eventually, everything we come to know about The Godfather is done. It's over 2 hours. It's a wild success. They use the key art from the book, which is now iconic.
I would say I love the scene of them looking at the posters that they're pushing, and I'm just like, are you trying to make this look like a comedy?
Yeah,
like one of those.
Funny because we did The Clockwork Orange last Thursday, and I looked at the artwork for that, and I'm just like, boy, they had a real aesthetic back then. Like there was a very particular look for these posters because they used that for The Clockwork Orange, and like, all right, that looks familiar. To get into the end of this, so that we can actually talk. It wins a whole bunch of Oscars. Francis Ford Coppola, I think, wins for Best Director. Al Ruddy wins an Oscar for Best Picture. And, it makes him a made man in Hollywood, which gives him the go-ahead to be able to not do part 2, which he doesn't want to do. And instead, he gets to make The Longest Yard with Burt Reynolds, which becomes a classic, which was then remade by Adam Sandler. So all's well that ends well. He along the way, Juno Temple plays his secretary, who goes on to become a talent agent. And that's the story of The Godfather. And the first thing I want to, I'll throw it out there for just open up for discussion. We brought up Miles Teller before. A couple of years ago, Dorian, a little bit of RABN history. Me and the other two wise men, Jesse Starcher and Robert Winfrey, reviewed a Refn show on Amazon Prime called Too Old to Die Young. And I don't know if you know anything about Refn, but this show nearly broke the three of us. Miles Teller was in that, and that is about where the block of wood thing started. He's actually really good at this. He has kind of that. I don't know if I think he's Jewish. He's not Italian, but he has a kind of a brusque, kind of macho, manly thing going on. The way he talks to people, like he said, again, he's Al Ruddy, who used to work for the Rand Corporation. He sounds like Louis from the corner, in Brooklyn. Throughout a lot of this, he's just the thing that draws me into Al Ruddy, the character, and Miles Teller's performance is he's got that personality where he believes in himself even if nobody else does, and that shines through. And it's like he has that natural kind of charisma where people are willing to follow him into the dark because he believes he's going in the right direction, even if nobody else thinks he is. And I like that about him. I think Miles Teller does a really great job, Dorian, of portraying that.
For the record, paternal grandfathers of Russian Jewish descent. Ancestry also includes English and Irish forebears. That's what it says on Wikipedia anyway. Thank
you for sharing that. Go ahead, Dorian. When you're done drinking, of course.
I'd absolutely agree. I was worried because, again, Miles Teller is on of like the biggest thing. Like, I know he's been in a lot of stuff, but on like the biggest things he's been in, it's like it's like a teeter-totter.
Yeah.
You've got Whiplash, which is fantastic, and then you got Fan Four Stick, which is
Fan Four Stick was not his fault. That was not as much as I don't like Kate Barr. That was not any of the actors'
right
fault.
now. Let's handle this right now and get it out of the way. Because it's something we've been doing better in the last, at least I've been hearing we're doing better in the last 30 years. There was a time when a movie sucked. We immediately were like, oh, well, the actors are just horrible. No, I'm sorry. The guy sitting in that chair who has the bullhorn and, the beret and the jumper pants and all that stuff, the buck stops there. you know,
Ellen,
I brought this
he
up a little
openly
bit
said it
in-
wasn't. He said it wasn't his fault. He said the studio butchered it.
Right. I kind of brought this up a little bit on the Kubrick thing, the Kubrick double or the triple feature, is that Kubrick's directing style caused a lot of the awkward line readings from actors that we've seen in other stuff that it's like, you're fantastic. What the fuck happened here? So again, the reason I brought up the Miles Teller teeter-totter is that I went into this not going, oh crap, not Fantastic Boy. I was like, okay, Whiplash Kid, here we go, man. Let's do this thing. And again, each and every episode, he proved that my faith was well founded. He was fantastic, and again, I hope he gets at least an Emmy nomination for what he did, because he really the movie may have rested on Ruddy's shoulders, but the show does not rest on Miles Teller as Ruddy's shoulders. Everyone is pulling their own weight, but he is the lead that really walks us through this, our POV that we're looking through, and he does it fantastically.
Okay, just real quick, Dorian. This came out in 2022. He did not get an Emmy. The awards were Critics' Choice Awards. It got nominated for Best Limited Series. Matthew Goode was nominated. Juno Temple was nominated, and Juno Temple won a Satellite Award for Best Supporting Actress. That's it.
I keep forgetting that this isn't as new as everything else we usually
No,
review.
we're just desperate for content.
We'll get there in the end.
Listen, I just did 7 months on the fucking Sons of Anarchy. That was like early 2000.
That's true. But no, again, I'll restate what I said. I hope that when he gets another part like this, he gets that recognition as an actor he deserves, because he worked really hard.
I think he was in I think the movie's called War Dogs. It's the one where him and this is nuts, the fat actor. They're selling weapons illegally, and he was really good in that. I think Miles Teller is who are you? Alexis is one of those actors who he rises to the level of the production that he's in, which is why he was shit in Van Forstic, and he's good in most of what he does.
What did you think of him in Top Gun Maverick? Because I still haven't seen that movie.
You still really?
Yeah.
He's good. You know, I think he's better than some of the people on our review of that gave him credit for. Again, blame the director.
Thanks, Mac.
Well, let me address that really quick. To Dorian's point, I have said on any number of occasions, you have to take the long view of performances and see that if they've been good in 8 of 10 other projects, it's probably not the actor's fault. You know, there are times where the performance is so bad, there's no possible way you can blame anybody else but the actor, and many times it's a kid. But for the most part, for most professional actors, they're not so wildly so bad in one performance and so great in another where you're just like, it's clearly an actor problem. No, a lot of times it's how the director handled them. So we're talking go ahead.
I'll say, I've said something like that about Mark Wahlberg, because I always said that's an actor who most wildly trusts his directors to the ends of the world. Because when he's in a movie with an amazing director, like he was in, oh my God, what was the Martin Scorsese movie that he was in with Matt Damon and Leonardo DiCaprio?
The Departed.
The Departed, thank you. He was amazing. But then when you watch him in The Happening with M. Night Shyamalan directing, he is delivering the worst performance of his career.
Yeah.
What? No.
Anything else on Miles Teller before we move on to something else?
Like I said, I really think he's good. You're right. He does have this I don't want to call it a bravado. It's a confidence.
Yeah.
He looks like somebody who walks into the room and he has no issues whatsoever with anything. He looks like someone who would solve any problem in front of him. And I like that he brings that to his portrayal of Ruddy. He just always seems like
what was needed.
I used to tell my daughter, walk into a room like you own it. No one will know any better.
And that is, and Miles Teller
Bogartism.
always looks like he walks into a room like he owns it. So yeah, I loved him in this.
It's Bogartism. It's you know, and that's, you know, like, it's funny. It's a gangster film, because how many of those did freaking Humphrey Bogart do?
So we're not going to go episode by episode, but I can take this in chunks as the story proceeds. The first couple of episodes where he puts Mario and Francis Ford Coppola together, First of all, I think Dan Vogel did a great job as Francis Ford Coppola. You mentioned it before. He's normally kind of a goofy character, and here he's playing it straight. And I mean, it's not like I know a lot about Francis Ford Coppola in terms of like who he was as a person, but there's a lot of earnest there. One of the things I like about the show, and one of the things I like about his performance in particular, is it really does speak to the different perspectives there are on making a movie. There's the business side, there's the artistic side, there's the producer side, there's the actor side. There's all of these different elements that go into this. I mean, anything with a large group of people is always going to have its problems because not everyone's going to agree on things. Not everyone's going to be even coming from the same place. So what I loved about his portrayal of Francis Ford Coppola was he was single-minded in his vision of the art is always first. But he was also, and there were certain things he was, his line about, I don't want to have to give up my color yellow.
That was such a great speech.
Yeah, when he does the toast and he has that resignation about, I guess sometimes they're just not going to get my yellow, and you could hear the heartbreak. And then later on, when they're like, "Yes, we're going to Sicily. Yes, you're getting Pacino. Yes, 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 you're getting all of the things you wanted. You spoiled brat, you." And he, and at one point, Al Ruddy says to him, "You're getting your yellow," and you could actually see like the joy emanate out of him. What a performance that is. I mean, that is purposeful. A lot of times, I think in television, we're willing to kind of take first take on this just to get this done. Like we're making widgets here. Let's go. But
get it in the can and go on to the next episode.
Yeah. There was a lot of time and effort and care that went into making this thing.
This felt like it was filmed like a movie.
Oh, yeah. This feels like a 10-hour movie. Mm-hmm. Which is fine, and I think it works to its credit. But I think as Francis Ford Coppola, if any of that is true, if that was really the way he was and the way he felt, one, I'm on his side. Like, and history supports it. The thing won a Best Picture. It's one of the most beloved movies of all time. Though it insists upon itself. So,
hey, you know what? You can go back to mocking Coppola when we review Megalopolis,
and we will. So anyway, I wanted to. So the stuff between, and I'll let you guys weigh in on this. The stuff between Mario Puzo and Francis Ford Coppola, they were a fun, like they're cooking in the kitchen, and there's that, like if you've ever, just kind of been dicking around in the studio or in a garage making music, and you're just like start playing something, and another person's like, "Oh, that'd be fun if I did this," and you make magic almost accidentally. They're cooking pasta, and they're having a conversation about real sauce versus jarred sauce. And Francis Ford Coppola has, like, you can see the idea bulb come over his head. He's like, this has to be in the movie. And I love that about this show. There's so many scenes of like little inspirations that happen between the actors that come out, that make it into the production. And I love that time and care was put into the script to make sure you had those moments. So I'll let you guys, Alexis and then Dorian, kind of speak on that presentation and relationship between Mario Puzo and Francis Ford Coppola.
Well, I'm with you because one of the things I always love to hear about in production, not just in production of movies, but in production of anything, is when a moment of inspiration strikes and you find a way to work that in. There has never been a project that is 100%, I know exactly how this is going to work, and it stays 100% all the way to the finish line. I love hearing stories about how new things were created, how they were incorporated, how mistakes and opportunities that they didn't get were actually improved upon. One of my favorite moments in this, and it's so funny, is the Lou Ferrigno scene. Because that was true. The actor who was going to play Luca Brasi passed away of a stroke. They needed a big hulking guy, and they got one of Coppola's men, or Columbo, sorry, Freudian slip, and he couldn't memorize the lines, and he fumbled in his takes, but Coppola said, I love that because it shows how nervous he is. And then he added that scene later on of him going over the cards. It's like, I want to be here, blah, blah, blah. And it adds so much actually to just a very short moment. And I just love the way it reminds me always of that story about Jaws, about how the shark sank in the water. And Spielberg had to find another way to make the shark work, and he did the point of view, which is now one of the most iconic moments in horror film history. So I love little tidbits like that.
Me too. There's the psychology and science as part of the filmmaking process, and I'm going to cite a bit from Star Trek. I don't know if you know this or not, Dorian. There's a bit in Deep Space Nine, and I cite it all the time as an example of this sort of thing.
Shout out to the Bell Riot survivors, by the way.
About how I believe it's O'Brien who says to Worf, as Worf is trying to learn command, and he goes, "You can't keep barking at these people. They want to make you happy. They want to solve problems for you, and that's what they do. Engineers are problem solvers, and they're not going to be able to think and solve your problems if you keep barking at them. So take a step back, tell them what you need, and let them go do it." And he does, and you could actually see the engineers being excited about solving problems. And you, as a director, obviously you've been on film sets, can speak to this better than I can. The idea of every day there's a new problem that has to be solved in the filming, and you're surrounded by, if you're blessed, creative enough people, smart enough people, scientific enough people to solve those problems.
Absolutely. And speaking to the Luca Brasi thing, I think had that scene with the cards not existed, we wouldn't have cared as much when he died. His death in the actual film kind of resonates. It's like, dude, okay, I realize he's a brute killer, but you know what? He was sweet, you fuckers. And so then when you get the baptismal scene and you see the people who fucked Brasi over, you're like, yes, glad your ass is dead. Which again is something that is brilliant that Coppola did in the film and that Ruddy allowed him to do. What as I spoke to earlier, it's like you get to a point in the movie itself of The Godfather where you're going, I am rooting for cold-blooded killers. Yep, I'm good with it. Keep going. And that was, you're absolutely right. Alexis was talking about, the being on set and things going haywire. And not every you don't do every movie, because I'm trying to quote you as correctly as possible. It's like, this is the vision. This is exactly what happened. I've worked with directors as their director of photography and first AD even. That's how they wanted it, and they would pout. I had one director who I worked with back on the East Coast that if he planned every shot out, but again, sometimes the sun would be in a position that, or someone had cut down a tree that had been there when we'd location scouted, fill in the blank here with an issue. And when we go, okay, well, we got to solve the problem. The shot doesn't really work anymore. Well, what if we do this? He would pout in the corner because, well, it's no longer my movie.
Oh, my God.
We just moved the camera like 6 inches this way, and we have some people holding branches, so we still get that light thing you wanted.
You know what the most crucial thing to know to survive is? Adaptation.
Yeah, I'm sorry to bring up Pirates of the Caribbean, but when the second one when he climbs out of the boat with the skeleton hand, not exactly according to plan. Problems arose, ensued, and were overcome. And see, that's the thing. I worked also with a DP one of my first times out directing, where I changed a moment because we were filming it, and one of the actors had not really acted before. So I'm like, dude, riff, get into it. We can put this in the background as something to cut away. It's B-roll. It's beautiful. It's always better to have more footage than less footage, blah, blah. And this DP and I got into this almost hour-long fight where he was like, well, if it's not on the page, it's not on the screen. Okay. Where did you go to school? And then when he told me, I was like, oh, well, that makes sense. I'm not going to bring up that institution here because I'm hoping they're better now. But this guy would go so far as he said that stunt performers were not actors. They're meat to be thrown around.
Yeah.
Funny thing about this story,
it's kind of a Hitchcockian line about actors are just moving scenery.
The funny thing about when this guy on my set said it is he said it 2 feet from the stunt choreographer and the stunt coordinator, both who were very recently retired military and still in really good shape. And this dude, much like me, was a beanpole. And I'm like, dude, if they kill you, I'm gonna let it happen. But coming back to the point,
oh no, I couldn't save you.
I'm struck temporarily blind. But no, it's this the scene with when the kitchen scene and them talking happened. I was like, oh my god, this is so perfect because again, in writers meetings, in location scouts, in actual setting up of shots, those moments will happen and you jot them down. And a good director, much like Coppola is, will allow actors to find their own line.
Mm-hmm.
And as a director, he goes, okay, that line works. Can you point it a little bit more this way? There we go. We're good.
So, a really quick, somewhat tangential anecdote, but it relates to like collaboration, which is what we're talking about. The portrayal of the collaboration between Mario Puzo and Francis Ford Coppola is some of the best stuff of the first third of this show. And I kind of miss having that kind of collaboration, that partner who can kind of read your mind and finish your sentences. I used to, a friend of mine, John Brodigan, he was on our Muppets review, Alexis.
Mm-hmm.
He was I met him in college. He was like my best friend for a really long time. We have as you could tell probably from the Muppets review, very similar sense of humor.
Definitely.
We used to co-write something called Peeing on WrestleMania. And it was our like yearly satire of whatever the wrestling show was. And we would write, we would take the card and for every match we would write a Mel Brooks style like parody or satire of what was going on in wrestling. It's a really funny one. So this is, the early 2000s. This is, I think, post the end of WCW. And there was something going on with Triple H and Stephanie McMahon. And he was like, and then Conan walks in and he's got the LWO and they're dressed up as mariachis and they're going, aye, 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 aye. Her name was Stephanie McMahon Helmsley. We just kind of wrote that kind of shit. But I miss that kind of collaboration where you're trying to you're writing stuff and you're putting something creative together and you have somebody who can match your energy. Switching topics, we have to talk about my other favorite performer in the first third to 2/3 of this show. Other than Miles Teller, he's probably my favorite performance of the entire show because it really is he becomes a whole other person from what he is as a regular actor. And that is Giovanni Ribisi as Joe Colombo. Holy cow. How did he not get nominated for an Emmy for performance in a miniseries? He is amazing in this.
I had to keep reminding myself it was him. I'm like, because Ribisi kind of came into prominence when I started getting into movies when I was in like late middle school, early high school.
Wasn't he like a heartthrobby kind of an actor?
He was for a time. And I'm like, this is the dude who played Nicolas Cage's kid brother in Gone in 60 Seconds. This is the guy who was with Claire Danes in that horrible Mod Squad movie adaptation.
Right.
He was in a freaking X-Files episode with a young Jack Black. It's just to see him like this. And it's just because, he has a
and you're like, where'd they get the fat guy with throat cancer? Oh my God, that's Giovanni Ribisi.
Yeah, he has a very youthful look about him. We saw him as the face of the corporation in Avatar, and his role is completely cardboard. But you look at him, it's like even in that role, he doesn't look like he's old enough to be the face of a corporation. He's very baby face, and he's got a very young voice, and that's always worked well for him on so many roles. And then he plays this. I'm like, what the hell happened?
Before every take, did he smoke a pack of Marlboros?
Yeah,
what the hell is he doing with his voice? Like, it is a transformative performance, and that's why I'm calling it out. He does a really good job, and I think Giovanni Ribisi brings the appropriate amount of balance between menace and charm to where you're conflicted as an audience member of whether or not, because obviously he'll kill you. He's a mobster and he's somebody whose ambition is to rise in the mob, and so there's that menace, but then there's also like his relationship with Al Ruddy when Al Ruddy convinces him that this is about family, not about the mob, and it's like once he kind of flips that switch and he's like, all right, Al, you're a made man now. You're with me. You're like, oh, he's a likable teddy bear. He's a wonderful. Oh my God, he's still a killer. Like it is one of those performances where it's, it is kind of a yin yang kind of a thing where it's a little bit of this and a little bit of this and a lot of that and a lot of that, and you're not quite sure where you are with him, and that's the magic.
Absolutely. I feel like this movie mirrors, or this show about the making of this movie mirrors a lot of the characters from the movie.
Yeah.
The gentleman we're talking about really is our Vito Corleone.
Yeah.
He's charming. He's soft, but again, he'll kill you. Ruddy is very much almost the mirror image of our Michael Corleone of like, hey, you want this, but that path may take you down a road you don't want to go down. And that's, again, I don't know if they did that purposely. I don't know if it was an accident. And I picked it up because I love movies and have watched way too many of them. But like, I really felt with his character, like, all the characters in this, much like The Godfather itself, continuing with the mirror metaphor, is you like them even if they are horrible. And I'm confused by that comment, so I'm going to move right along. Just roll.
I'm sorry. I thought someone would get it.
You can put them on screen. We don't have to address them.
No, that's fair. But again, there are audience members. We want to know that we are grateful you're here.
Of course we are.
It's every actor in this, from Teller, Diacato, Matthew Goode, everybody stepped up their game.
Sorry, Matthew Goode is Robert. I want to stay on the mob, but Matthew Goode's nasally performance as Robert Evans, where he sounds like he's got a constant allergic reaction going on. Some of my favorite stuff of this, like, first of all, he's Jewish. He's calling everybody Bubba, and he's a little oversexed. He's my spirit animal. Yeah, but back on Giovanni Ribisi and the mob.
Right. It's I liked how they handled them in this.
Mm-hmm. They definitely made the mob seem like people.
Yeah.
They are criminals. They are a part of a criminal enterprise. They hurt people. But like the guy that has the hots for Juno Temple's character,
Caesar.
Yeah.
Oh, he's a great character.
Yeah,
I love getting to know him.
He's like an actual person.
Like
my favorite thing that he does is when they're dealing with the restaurant owner and like, hey, look, I just need him dealt with. We need a few more hours. Just deal with it. And he's just like, all right, I got this for you, boss. And he shoves him in a fucking closet. He's like, yeah, come with me. What?
I love it. It's like, it doesn't have to be violence. I just got to get a. By the way, speaking of actors playing members of the mob, how freaking hilarious was it to see Michael Gandolfini playing a Texas tycoon?
Yes, that was funny.
That was such a hilarious.
They did that on purpose. Like he found out about this show. His agent called and was like, "Listen, he's done The Sopranos. He's perfect for like again. He could play Luca Brasi in like a background character." And the actual producer of the show went, what if you played a Texan?
Yeah, what's that phrase? Swinging the lamp or something like that. Right. It's like, careful what you do with that lamp. It's just like that was such a wink.
Let's cast you against type and see what happens. All right, we've cut you off like 87 times. So go ahead and finish your point, Dorian, because there's something else I want to ask.
I to the mob characters. One of the things I thought about when I finished this is like, I don't want to screw with the magic that they did in this show, but I would love to see the creative team behind this have not a blank check, because that usually screws us up, but like do an actual mobster film, because this is 2 inches from being a mobster film. And I think a modern day one, set, obviously I know this is obviously set in the 70s because that's when they made it, but giving them the chance to either do a period piece that was set in the 70s or something like that. Not necessarily the same actors, but it's like everybody who was involved in this behind the scenes and in front of the camera did fantastic. And I'd love to see them do this again if they were interested, because it felt in so many biopics, we have to change the rules of what happened. We have to change exactly what happened, because it's like, okay, well, that's going to be boring to an audience for an hour and a half. Case in point, Disney's Mr. Banks. When they're talking about the making of Mary Poppins, it's still a fantastic film, but a lot of things had to be changed because, and such like this. This felt like it was so natural and so perfect. I'm shocked that it had not been made before, but I'm happy that it was made by these people, because these people obviously had a love for it. that comes through, and all the actors you can tell have seen The Godfather.
The way this unrolls, The Godfather and Love Story saved Paramount Studios as we know it today, for better or for worse.
And again, I've always wanted to do and I have a pitch for it. I'm not saying this as a shameless plug, but I've always wanted, for the same reasons, I've wanted to do a movie called Dreamweaver, which is about the making of A Nightmare on Elm Street, because that movie saved New Line Cinema.
Yeah.
In fact, you still go to their studios, they still have that big mural and then that sign that says, New Line Cinema, even though they're owned by Warner Brothers now, it still says the house that Freddie built. And again, Paramount, even though they had done so many great things, like we started the podcast off saying, they were going downhill, and this movie saved it.
Yeah. All right. I want to bring this up really quickly, because then we're going to move on to something else, and we're at an hour. One of the criticisms of this show, I just want a short response to this, Alexis, and then Dorian. I want to see if you agree. One of the big criticisms of the show, and it's not get the world's greatest Rotten Tomatoes rating. Critically, I think it's somewhere in the 50s, is one too many plot lines. There's a lot going on with this show, and I was doing a little bit of reading. I've read some articles on it, because there's not a lot of tertiary and secondary literature on this show. It kind of came and went, and people paid attention to it in 2022 and then promptly forgot about it. But the consensus seems to have been, it's too busy of a show. There's too many plot lines, and there's something else I want to talk about after this, but as one of those plot lines. But there was stuff with the mob. There was stuff going on internally at Paramount. There's the actual making of the thing and all the problems it had. And it's just too much. It was overstuffed. What did you think about that?
I was personally okay with it because I thought that all the plot lines were interesting. They all had my attention. I understand that for some people, maybe the stuff dealing with the mob got a little too long-winded. I'll admit it did kind of feel like they took the energy out of this. They took the wind out of the sails of that a little too soon.
The guy that gets out of prison and joins up with the Harlem gang, and they spend an episode or two on that.
Yeah, that guy is going to be cast forever as a psychopath. Those eyes are scary as hell.
About the only
Nicolas Cage, eat your heart out. I'm coming for your job.
That's about the only one that I buy. Is we probably didn't need that, but considering it does tie into the show, because he tries to get money out of the movie and all this other stuff that happens. Like, it plays into the decision to go or not go to Sicily. Like, I don't know how you remove it from the show, but I could see people being like a bit irritated that we're doing a little too much with the mob and not enough with the Godfather.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, because actually Gallo's death had nothing to do with the Godfather. Gallo died long after the Godfather had wrapped. He was assassinated, but yeah, it was like, I want to say like a year, by the after the film had wrapped, by the time he was assassinated. And I can understand some people saying it's like Gallo and Columbo there was a problem with that, but you didn't have to merge them as much. But maybe the producers felt they needed more suspense, since they chose to have Columbo's assassination in, what was it, episode 7, I think?
Yes, I don't know.
Something like that. Yeah. But I'll admit that, I felt like they did take the wind out of the sails a little too soon with the mafioso stuff. I mean, it gets wrapped up so quickly, and it's hilarious that, Columbo just basically says, remove any context of the word mafia. In real life, he said no use of the word mafia, no use of the word Cosa Nostra, and Puzo and Coppola basically said the word mafia comes up twice, and we never use Cosa Nostra. So it's like, fine, done, it's gone.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, like,
Dorian,
whatever.
Your thoughts on whether or not this was too overstuffed with too much, how busy it was? Yes or no?
No. To be quite honest, I'll be very quick. This is a movie about making a movie. There are a million things that go into it. I'll agree with the plot line you guys were just talking about. You guys already said everything that I was going to say, so I'm not going to, we didn't necessarily need that. But again, the trailer of this show showed you it was about the making of a movie.
Right.
Now, if the trailer of the show had said it's about Mario Puzo writing the story and it was all this, okay, I can understand that. It felt like the critics really wanted more the storyline of the man who invented Christmas, which is a movie came out about 6 years ago about Charles Dickens having the thought process to write
That's the Dan Stevens movie, right?
Yes, it is. It felt like the critics wanted that when the trailers obviously showed you this was about pitching this movie, getting the money, making everything work together. And so, no, I don't think that it was overstuffed. I think with a movie that is as big and as long, and it took, so long to make, and, all the bad things that happened, all the good things that happened from it, this is exactly what we needed from the storyline. We needed to know every single weird web of crap, the tangled puppet strings, if you will, that caused this marionette of a movie to dance the way it did.
I'm going to bring up one last thing, and then I'm going to go to you, Alexis, for any of your burning desires, and then Dorian, you can back clean up, and then we're out. I put this on TikTok. It's my favorite line from the entire show, and it's a line said by Colin Hanks, who plays Barry Lapidus. And he is an executive at Gulf and Western who, when Robert Evans' wife, it's a simple yes or no, did you recognize the wife character of Robert Evans? The ones who runs off with Steve McQueen?
Are you saying we recognize that she's supposed to be, that it's Ally McGraw from Love Story? Or are you saying, do we recognize the actress playing Ally McGraw?
The actress playing her.
No.
She's the mayor's wife from Resident Alien.
Yeah.
Oh my God, she is.
I would have thought that would have been the first thing you were going to bring up to me.
She wears a lot more makeup on Resident Alien.
I can think about when I saw her.
To be fair, I had to pause it and go to IMDb and be like, son of a bitch, did you? What up?
I guess you've watched it. Yeah. So it's fun to see her in this, getting some solid television credits. But so that's what happens with Robert Evans and what happens with Albert Ruddy and their significant others kind of mirror each other. And, Robert Evans is very much like, I've got to deal with Love Story. I've got to deal with The Godfather. I got to deal with this pop. I'm going to lose my job if I don't dig in and deal with this stuff. And there's the wife going, I'm a person too with needs and wants, and I deserve attention, some attention. Let me in here. And they're like, no time for you. And they're like, all right, well, I'll find someone who does have time for me. And they're like, why did you leave? So that's Robert Evans' story in the show, at least. And so he's having a mental breakdown for 2 or 3 very long episodes. And during that time, you have Barry Lapidus, who's like, number one, Paramount is losing money hand over fist. Number 2, the executive just fucked off and is having a mental breakdown. So like, either we're selling this or I'm going in and I'm taking it over. And he's made to, and there's a reason why I'm bringing this up. They make it sound like the show does. He's the villain in a lot of this. Like, he's like the evil corporatist who, he's giving him shitty art and he's making him cut the movie and he's doing this and he's doing that. He's being an adult is what he's doing.
Yeah, but he's also the guy who said cut Chinatown.
How do you know at that? I want to strangle you. How do you know at that time that Chinatown's gonna be a hit? You are using the power of hindsight to make that judgment.
Because the show uses that. You have the scene of him saying, I don't greenlight anything I don't understand. The show is purposely trying to make him look like a jerk because of that scene. That's what I'm going with. That's
fine. And I take back my wanting to strangle you, sort of. But
thank you.
You're welcome. But
you don't get to strangle me, Dorian. You know where I live.
Moving on. My point is, like, objectively, I'm looking at it from his point of view going, tell me the pitch again. Like, it's a show about water. Like, get the fuck out of here. Like, I get why he's doing what he's doing. You're trying to run a business, and businesses, this may shock some people, are designed to make money. That's the idea, at least. Anyway, so the fact of the matter is, part of one of the many plot lines of the show is Albert Ruddy runs to Robert Evans' home and says, please, baby, come back. We need you. If you don't come back, we're going to lose Paramount. We're going to lose The Godfather. We're going to lose everything. So in the middle of like Barry Lapidus making all the bad decisions, Robert Evans comes back, ta-da, saves the day. And there's a conversation that takes place between the CEO of Gulf and Western and Barry Lapidus. And there's a great character, by the way, the Austrian fella. He's some of the best line. Dude, he also is my spirit animal of, we waste time with pleasantries. Just to fucking say what you got to say and get the fuck out. Yeah, I live by that motto.
Well, I would say played by Burn Gorman, who is
He's
such
so
a good
good.
character actor.
Yeah, he's fucking phenomenal in this, and he has such a really cute relationship with Juno Temple in the movie, but in the show. Anyway, the point is, there's a conversation that takes place between him and Barry Lapidus, and who's played by Colin Hanks, and Colin Hanks is like, everything that Robin Evans touches turns to gold. He should be running Paramount. Never hate your enemies. It's just business. And I'm like, I love that line. That was my favorite line in the entire show, such to the point that I recorded it and put it on TikTok. Anything, Dorian, about any of what I just said for the past 5 minutes?
Yeah. The hardest thing about this business is that, again, producers are always seen, even today, as the bad guys. Now, again, a lot of them in our day-to-day lives.
Well, nobody wants to be told no.
Right. But again, like, people like Harvey Weinstein, have become, a villain. And again, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. It is a tough business. And I think that they handled it very well. The situation of when you are so obsessed with your art and your business, when your business is art, that it can affect the rest of your relationships. And it's a tough road to hoe. And, that's why a lot of people, like, you don't see a lot of very famous or successful actors, directors, producers that marry someone outside of the business.
Right.
Because again, it's like, if you're married to if you're a producer and you're married to an actor, they get it. They're just as busy as you are. But if you're married to someone outside, or in a relationship with someone who's outside the business, they don't understand how much of this time sucks from, because we don't have take your girlfriend and or wife to work to see what kind of bullshit you have to deal with. We don't have that day. Like,
so they do have that scene in the show where he literally takes a date to the filming of a scene.
That's actually where I was going next with it. But, it's, I have to agree that line is one of the best. I wouldn't say it's my absolute favorite, but it is very high up there. Of sometimes people are just that good, and you have to sacrifice. Do you want to be great at business and be financially and successfully comfortable and for the rest of your life, or do you want to have your white picket fence? Because you're not going to get both with this game.
Yeah. Alexis, I was talking about Colin Hanks's bit there, and did you have anything else you wanted to add? If not, I want to ask you what you want to talk about before we start to head out of here.
Oh, just that this is why David Zaslav can burn in hell, because you don't put a accountant as the head of your film company.
Put Andrew on adding Alexis wants to kill David Zaslav on the bingo card. Dog with a bone.
I'm not the only one.
Moving on.
Something I will say really quick while she's collecting her thoughts, apparently.
Thank you, Dorian.
That was all I was saying. No, I'm done.
1, 2, 3. I'm in.
That's all I wanted to say.
I got your back, Ghost Rider. I'm coming in.
Look, they clearly had Colin. Okay, Colin Hanks is worried about the budget. His number one focus is money. Watching him talk about all the things he wanted to cut because he just wanted to save money. Yes, I was having flashbacks to the news announcements from David Zaslav saying about all the shit they were going to cut and the whole thing about the Batgirl movie. I'm sorry. That's what I saw watching this.
Well, I also asked you if there's anything else you wanted to talk about in general.
I think like I said, the thing that threw me for the most was the beginning, talking about the Italian Americans pushing against these kind of stereotypes. Mm-hmm. Seeing Frank Sinatra throw his hissy fit, which yes, did happen in real life.
Get out of here, you fat fuck! Oh my god, I died laughing.
So again, I bought this on Amazon. I'm not getting a Paramount Plus subscription. I just went ahead and bought the series. I called my dad and told him I was watching it. My father is one of the biggest Frank Sinatra fans. Mm-hmm. He was given a painting of him by a friend. It's one of the close-up shot of his face and showing the bright blue eyes, and he loves it. And I sold my dad. I was like, Dad, you can borrow our Amazon account if you want to watch this. I had him sold when I told him there was a scene in the first episode of a of a fight between Mario Puzo and Frank Sinatra in a restaurant. He was like, he wants to see this now.
Done.
Yeah.
Quit drilling. You've hit oil.
All right, Dorian, you started to say something, and then also, what else did you want to talk about?
Just two, or actually three very, very quick things. I had to laugh when Matthew Goode popped up in this because obviously I know him most from Watchmen.
Mm-hmm.
And as Ozymandias, and I thought it was funny when his wife left him. I was like, "See, this is where it all starts, man. This is where he gets pissed.
This is why you're naked on the moon.
This is why he's fucked. He gets Dr. Manhattan to fuck New York up is because his wife left him. He went, screw it. The whole world sucks.
Just remember that guy's gonna turn into Jeremy Irons,
right? In the weird spinoff. But no, overall, like again, I would go back to this show, and I plan to actually and watch it with some friends who also are big film lovers, and just and also encourage other people to watch it. Which is hopefully they're watching now or will be watching as soon as they get off work. I found a funny joke about it is how Francis Ford Coppola looks the entire how they've dressed him the entire show. And this is a personal story, but it's also why I love this. I had a whole bunch of friends over, and we were just having a chill party, and we were talking about celebrities and stuff like that. And we were trying to figure out which celebrity we all looked like. And it came down, and Mick Wanamaker, who's been on the show as of last week with the triple feature for Stanley Kubrick, looked at me and she goes, "You know what? There's a couple of celebrities I could say you look kind of like. Do you know who you look like dead to a T?" I was like, "Who?" And she's like, "Well, who plural? The way you dress every single day, you look like a director. If you walked in, I would go, that's the director." And the reason I bring that personal story up is not only was it like, "Oh, thanks," but it was also like how he's dressed this entire way. It's like, apparently those of us who are directors have this just style that we have. And it's just how we're like, it's usually.
You look like you're on safari.
Yeah. Or it's like, because we have to have pockets for shit, man. You
look like a Rob Liefeld comic book character.
What?
Ow. Dude, I think that's the biggest insult you've ever given him.
I said, yeah, you look like a Rob Liefeld comic book character.
I'm sorry, I'm not 70 years old, so I don't get that joke. I do apologize.
Rob Liefeld invented Deadpool.
The joke is about the amount of pouches that were prominent in 90s comic book art.
That makes sense. Sorry, I was actually going to look it up, but it's like when Alexis said, like, that's the biggest insult you've had. I'm like, all right, well, I got to swing back.
Dorian, like 5 seconds later, like, old man comic book jokes.
Hang on. We got to find the Captain America picture. Keep talking. I'll find it.
Overall, like, I really enjoy, like, Francis Ford Coppola was my favorite character in this. And I when I came to the show, I was worried that they wouldn't play him right. But then when I saw Dan Fogler was playing him, okay, I feel you. I get you. But one of the things that Dan Fogler, again, as I constantly refer to him as the man who saved Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, look me in the eye and tell me I'm wrong. The only reason people come to see those movies. It's like, what funny shit are you going to do? He did fantastic in this. The entire cast is on point. If you're a fan of dramas, if you're a fan of movies, if you're a fan of The Godfather, watch the show.
One of the very last bits where Mario Puzo they're at the Oscars. Mario Puzo kind of leans in and he's talking to Al Ruddy. And he was like, "Warner Brothers just paid me $1 million for one page. I wrote a treatment for Superman." And I had that like film nerd moment of, I know that.
Well, actually, it's funny. You've done it again. You took my last note because I was going to end with, can anybody tell me what the next big movie that Mario Puzo would write the story for?
Mm-hmm.
That was the 1978 Superman.
Which also featured, what's his nuts there? The Godfather himself.
Marlon Brando.
Marlon Brando, yeah.
And much like The Godfather launched Al Pacino's career, this would launch Christopher Reeves.
Superman launched Christopher Reeves. And so, again, I love that. That was one scene I knew we weren't going to talk about, like in the overall thing, because it was so small at the end. And I loved that because it was like, it felt like watching a part of history. And that's one of the greatest things about this show is that it does give us that fly on the wall. You weren't born in 1972. You weren't even thought of in 1972. Hell, your parents weren't even born in 1972. But we're going to give you a look back at what it was like making this great film. So, again, everybody, audience members watching, anyone watching after we go off live, go see this show. It's worth your time.
It
Before
is
you-
long. It's
be-
10 episodes, and each one's at least an hour.
Before you sell everybody on this, because there is one more thing I wanted to bring up. If you guys have got nothing else, I just wanted to make sure you got your shit in. The one criticism I have of this show, feel free to disagree with me or agree with me, but it's the one thing I was kind of in agreement with the critics about, because I didn't think it was that busy either, and I was okay with all the mob stuff that was in it. But the one thing that bothered me, they spend way too long arguing about Al Pacino. Like, this is half of the show. They're fighting over Pacino, and it's like, and it goes into like the last third before they finally get it, and then and even while they're shooting the movie with him, because there was like on-set political rivalries, they're trying to get him off the show, and it's like, Jesus Christ, like this is a dramatic issue for me. This is the same beat and the same obstacle for like 6 out of 10 episodes. It drove me up the fucking wall, Dorian.
I'd have to agree. I think that could have been handled much better. There's a term in filmmaking called skip the shoe leather. And what that means, very quickly to the audience members who don't know what that means, is if I have a scene where Mark is driving somewhere, I don't need to show his entire, like, let's say he's driving to this podcast. I don't need to see him leaving work, walking to his car, getting into his car, turning the car on, driving all the way home, getting out of his car, walking to his front door, unlocking it, walking in, turning on the lights, turning on the podcast. That's shoe leather. I think the Pacino, and I did that a lot quicker than I expected to. I was a little worried. I'm like, this is going to drag on. I think they could have still had those fights going, and you could have had Miles Teller and Matthew Goode walking down the hallway, almost Aaron Sorkin style, with the walk and talk. And, they're talking about something else. Like, by the way, did we ever fix the Pacino issue? And they walk past an office, and Goode could just open a door, and it's like, we don't want Pacino, but we need Pacino. And he just closes the door and goes, does that answer your question? And you could walk on and keep popping back to it without having the shoe leather issue. I feel like if this show had been made in the 90s, that could have worked better because, again, people my age, you got Gen Z going, okay, I know who Al Pacino is. Why is this such a big fucking deal?
Not to mention the fact that we know how this ends.
Yeah, it's like
he's in the fucking movie.
With Pacino being one of the biggest stars in Hollywood.
Right. So
it's like watching Star Wars going, is Anakin gonna fall to the dark side? Seriously, right now?
I've talked about like prequels before and this is kind of the issue here. If you already know how it ends, it's all about how you do it. And here, you know how it ends. He gets the part, and and he's iconic for it. It like makes Pacino's career. Okay. A couple of scenes hither and yon about how he's the wrong guy for it, and then the attempt to get him, and then one more time that turns Evans around, and then we're done. We don't even need the bit with the other executives on set that try to get him fired. Throw that shit out. It's unnecessary for the show. We get it. He's gonna get the part. It just annoyed the piss out of me, Alexis.
I'll agree with you, but mostly because, with the exception of one time when I think it's Robert Evans calls him a shrimp, I did not understand why there was so much animosity towards Pacino. The way they screamed, "Not Pacino!" You would have sworn that this guy was in the worst movie of all time.
I was going to say, like, Pacino was like the fucking boogeyman from the WWE.
Yeah.
Like, why is he eating worms? What are we doing here?
Yeah, it's like,
killed my cat.
The way they act about these producers act about him is that you swear they consider him box office poison.
Yeah.
Now, I get Coppola saying we need to get him because Coppola talks about how we saw him off Broadway,
right,
and he has the intensity. And I love how they show Bludhorn or Bludhorn, the Austrian, the scene with the restaurant. I thought that was really cool.
Right.
But yeah, you have so much of it's like Pacino's gonna kill this movie, and I'm like, why? I don't understand why you guys hate the actor. Is it all just because you think he's short? Yes, Pacino is a little man. We all know this. But if that's the only reason, you need to spell it out more clearly, because I'm confused.
Yeah. All right. One more time around the horn here, because like I said, I love the show. It's not the kind of thing we normally talk about on here, but it kind of fits in because it is about movie making history, and we do talk a lot of movies on this network, way too many. So, it was one where I don't normally do a lot of television reviews, as Alexis will, like to remind everyone. But this was kind of a, hey, I really want to talk about this with friends. So thank you, friends. So one more time around, Alexis, you got anything else? Or you good?
I did really enjoy it. Again, it is a very long series. Majority of the episodes are an hour or more. It's 10 episodes. So I've told you guys before about how I can't watch too many TV shows at the same time, because if I'm going to talk about them on the network, I need to keep my head straight about them. And you watch too many, they all start to blur together.
Suddenly, the acolytes in the Godfather, and you don't know what's going on.
I was literally
and all of a sudden,
Robert Evans is fighting Master Rowe in the forest,
and then next thing you know, Homelander is taking out Melee's the dragon.
Yes.
Yeah. So I had to hold off on watching this, even though I've known about it for ages. I had to wait till we were done with oh my God, I almost said How to Train Your Dragon. David has cursed me to forever think of it like that. House of the Dragon, The Boys, and The Acolyte. And then I had to wait because as soon as we were done with all of that, I had to go to Colorado Springs for work. And I could not watch this while I was getting stuff ready for that show because I had to focus. So I basically ended up with like 2 days to watch this show. And even still, I just barely got under the wire. When I logged in at like 5 minutes till, it's because I just finished.
I want you to know from the bottom of my heart, and this is the most honest, truthful thing I've ever said to you, Alexis Hejna, I love that you suffer for me.
Spank me hard, Daddy.
I don't suffer from many people, Mark. You're one of the few.
I'll take it.
But like I said, it is a very long show. There's a lot of details, and it's not one you can really just.
God bless her. My ex-girlfriend and I watching the show, she did the girl thing of just like, oh, is that what's happening here? What's happening then? Why is he doing that? And just right cross. Love her to death, but ugh. Yeah, it was one of those just watch the fucking show, please.
You know what?
The Radulich Broadcasting Network does not encourage beating up your girlfriend because she doesn't understand the show.
I will say I'm glad I bought it. Andre watched the first episode with me. I couldn't wait for him because he had to go do other stuff. I'm like, no, hon, I gotta finish this for the show. So he's gonna.
Or he'll beat me. Sorry, keep going.
Hey, I am a fucking professional, man. You asked me to do something, I do it. I'm gonna freaking sit through What Happened to Rosemary's Baby for you.
I'm gonna kill you. I swear to God.
So, but yeah, Andre's gonna watch it later. He's glad I bought it. My dad really wants to see it. I told him I'd loan him my Amazon account. So this is a really great show, especially if you're a fan of filmmaking, if you're a fan of The Godfather, or you're just a fan of gangster movies.
All right, Dorian Price, take me home, baby doll.
Absolutely, sir. I'm going to agree with Alexis. I'm going to take it a little bit further. For everybody who's watching, everyone who watches later, whether this is 6 months from when we did this live, whether it's 2 minutes, if you haven't seen The Godfather, because again, I know a lot of people in my generation haven't. It's not something that pops up. Watch that movie. There's a really great cut of The Godfather.
It's got lightsabers in it. Go watch it. Sorry.
It doesn't, but that would be cool if it did. Now, when you go to the toilet in the back, there'll be a taped lightsaber. Now, take that off.
I'm going to tell my kids it had lightsabers in it. An anime.
By the way, can we talk about how hilarious
blackjack and hookers?
The moment when Coppola tells the props director to actually put the gun more out of reach because he wants to see Pacino struggle. Again, I love that.
My favorite thing was when the horse looks too fake, and so Caesar goes to the butcher to get a live horse head, and they're like, "Is that a real horse head?" No.
I love that line. Props to props. That was a great line.
Yeah. All right. Sorry, Dorian.
No, you're good. It's been a point this show. It's like I get interrupted. It'll be my turn next time. So I'll interrupt everyone.
Everyone gets a turn.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, no. Watch the Godfather movies. If you haven't seen them before you watch this show, but if you've seen The Godfather, this is a show that you will enjoy. Yes, it's long. I wouldn't suggest binging it in one sitting. Watch an episode a night, like old school TV. One episode, then watch an episode the next night. You will not be disappointed. And it's, again, everybody from behind the camera to in front of the camera to in front of the camera, behind the camera, because of what this story is, brings the heat. And it is a show that was sadly underrated. And again, I'm glad we're here on the Radulich Broadcasting Network, bringing another spotlight to it. And if you don't like it, that's fine. Just remember, it's not personal. It's strictly business.
I wanted to end the podcast saying that line when I thought I was hosting tonight. I was because when Mark, when you told me you were hosting, I'm like, damn, I had the perfect send off.
Did you want me? Did you want me to order from an Italian menu before we left?
Well, it wouldn't be me if it wasn't disappointing women. Let's move on. All right. So that is the end of our show. That is our review of The Offer from Paramount Plus. Thursday, we are doing an on trial for the original Beetlejuice. That'll be Sean Comer, Dorian Price, Shay Tate, and myself. Next week, 87 million fucking people will be on Beetlejuice 2. It'll be Alexis Hejna, Robert Winfrey, Jason Teasley, Dorian Price, Mick Wanamaker, Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, the whole Get Along gang. Everyone will
The
be
Hanging Gardens of Babylon.
Yes. And the day before that, some people call it a cult. I like to think of it as a family. And Dorian Price has become one of our high priests. He is now going to start hosting his own shows, beginning with an on trial for Prometheus. Isn't that right, Dorian?
It is indeed. I'm excited.
All right. So that'll be next Sunday. The 8th is on trial Prometheus. It'll be myself and Dorian. 106 people for Beetlejuice. And then a week from Thursday, speaking of people who don't prepare for podcasts, Ronnie Adams and I will be doing a Whiskey Rebellion for something he doesn't have to prepare for. In fact, he actually pitched this show. We're going to be talking old school wrestling. Speaking of the 70s, back in the 70s, the AWA, the Mid-Atlantic, whatever, the Mid-South, all of it. So that'll be fun. It'll be just me and Ronnie riffing. It'll be a good time. Will be had by all. All right. Alexis Hejna, I understand you make jewelry and paint houses.
The house is not so much. Yes, Honeysuckle Rose Creations, where fashion meets fandom at the intersection of geek and chic. Like I had previously mentioned, we just wrapped up Colorado Springs Comic-Con, one of our favorite shows to do. Dante Bosco got one of our Firebender Jenga keychains, and he apparently really liked it. I hate that I didn't get a picture of him getting it, but he apparently really liked it.
I was about to say, picture, it didn't happen.
Well, I'm sorry, but a girl bought it and she gave it to him and she said he really liked it. What was I supposed to do? Yell at this girl who bought my merchandise to go back and get a picture?
Yes, take a picture and put it on FetLife.
All right. Well, apparently my stuff is either Firebender or Lost Boy approved, depending on what generation you're from. We are going to be heading to Anime Des Moines next. That's at the end of this month. And our last, well, apparently not our last show, because we're going to be doing Planet Anime in October. Looking forward to that, especially since it has been announced that they got several cast members from Hazbin Hotel and Hell of a Boss coming. So we know that's going to be a great show. I will be later doing an appearance at Balfour Winery this coming December for one of their sip and sells. And we just got word. I just sent in the application. Fingers crossed we may be doing after the first of the year, the Kansas City Paranormacon. That is Kansas City's paranormal convention, where several cast members of Ghost Hunters will be making an appearance. So looking forward to that and bringing in our A game with our horror jewelry. In the meantime, you can always find us. Our stores are available on Etsy and Handmade at Amazon. We're going to be having a few new items coming in very shortly, including our new Hazbin Hotel earrings. We have our new Beetlejuice earrings and a couple of other designs that I'm working on. And as always, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, I'll never call it X, and TikTok. That's Honeysuckle Rose Creations, the intersection of geek and chic.
All right, Dorian, tell us about all the people you've shot.
Well, a good way of saying that. I have the only job in the world where it's like, oh no, I'm sorry, I can't hang out. I'm going and shooting these two people tonight. But yes,
we speak about that so openly.
But no, at Frankie Pictures, if it needs to be photographed, needs to be filmed, needs to be edited, you call us. We want to make your dream a reality. finishing up 2 music videos. At the moment, one for the Ryan Express. The next one for Drew 6. We got several others I can't talk about because of NDAs. But we got a lot of good stuff coming up here. But again, we got a lot of spots open on the calendar, so please hit us up. We've got some more exciting things to talk about when we come back for the Beetlejuice review, because there'll be a lot more I can talk about then. But it is 1 hour and 34 minutes, and I can feel Mr. Radulich's rage wanting to just click that end button. So I'm going to shut up right now. It's been a great hanging with all you guys. Come back and see us real soon. We got a lot more fun people to talk to.
At some point, Alexis and I are going to do The Bear, all 3 seasons of that, and I'm going to hand her the reins back over. And then I'm trying to convince her to do The Flight Attendant next year. So I've decided that all the stuff I don't want to do with Jesse, but I want to talk about with somebody, I'm going to make you do. So.
Well, I also want to take a look. There's a new show coming up on FX called Grotesquerie, starring Niecy Nash. That also looks really good.
Sounds terrible. All right.
You like Niecy Nash?
I do, when she's in Claws. All right. For Alexis Hejna, for Dorian Price, I'm losing my voice. Be well, be safe, and behave.